She's the bomb. All right. Hey, everybody, this is Carey Conley. I am so unbelievably excited for this live broadcast today. Already, I'm getting goosebumps, and I just know this discussion it's probably going to have to be continued. I can tell already. But I'm doing this live broadcast this month every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time through what I'm calling my Hope and Healing Summit. And the purpose of the summit was for a couple things. Number one, my podcast, Moving Through and Beyond, celebrated the 1 year anniversary last Saturday on 11/11. And I have just been so blessed to have so many amazing guests that it was so hard for me to pick people to come onto these panels. So we're going to have to keep doing it for sure. And the podcast is doing really well. Thanks to all of you who've been listening, sharing, subscribing. About a month ago, we reached over 38,000 in views, which is really exciting. It's remarkable and such a blessing. And considering I put off doing a podcast for so long, you guys. My team, amazing team. I want to thank them most of all for their expertise. They are called Personalized Solutions. If you're looking for a podcast team, these guys are amazing. And the woman who founded the company is a friend of mine, and for years kept saying, you need to do a podcast because of my background in speaking, my passion around people needing vision and hope and purpose for their life. And now the direction that I'm heading is wanting to help young adults. And I have an announcement that I want to announce at the end of this broadcast. So I hope that you all will stay on. You will share this out. It's going to be rich dialogue. So thank you all so much. And mostly I want to thank the men here who are on, who are taking time out of what I know are already packed calendars and setting aside this hour to come and talk about this topic on men and mental health. So I want to take a moment and have each of them introduce themselves to you. Really special men in my life. And so, Marcus, I'm going to start with you.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to be here. My name is Marcus Black, also known as M. Black Speaks, and I am a best-selling author and international award-winning speaker. And also I work with the next generation in speaking life and mentorship into schools. Was in the state, now all around the nation. So I get to have a lot of influence. But at the end of the day, I'm just a servant. So I'm someone that looks for opportunities to help other people and breathe life and light into any room that I enter. So that's who I am. I'm incredibly excited to be here with these other world changers and excited for the conversation, my friend.
Oh, man, I love the energy you're bringing. And I know you guys are all going to be bringing it. And I just want to tell you all, I met Marcus because he was speaking at an event that I went to in Dallas 3 years ago now, I think almost. And at the time that I went to this event, I was getting ready to move to Oklahoma City. And when I found out he was from Oklahoma City, I said, okay, you're going to have to help me get acclimated there because it's a big move from Scottsdale to Oklahoma City, right? And coincidentally enough, well, not coincidentally, that event in Dallas, they were spotlighting a nonprofit that is in Oklahoma City called Generation Y, Gen Y, which is what's on Marcus's hat. And so they are young adults. They're an organization that is headed up by the founder, Jordan Miller, who is a young man who has created curriculum that he brings into the schools there. And what they do is they go in and teach the kids about vision, purpose, why they matter. Big organization that's blowing up right now. And Marcus has become a big part of that. And they're just amazing. So we're going to talk more about what you're seeing with these kids, Marcus. So thank you for what you're doing and for your time here. Appreciate you. So my friend Jeremy Montoya, would love for you guys to meet him.
Hey, so honored to be here, Carey. Thanks for the invitation and for having me. Jeremy Montoya, also known as @WhatUpJeremy, for sharing our aliases. Marcus, thanks for starting that trend. I appreciate you, bro. I'm an online business coach with a passion for building America's workforce and a passion for building the next generation of young adults. And so I'm excited to be here to share on my perspective on what I see out there, and also just to share on with how gloomy and doomy everything can seem when we open up these screens, when we tune into the television, we tune into news or social media, still how much opportunity and how much good there is going on and to be done. And I'm honored and stoked to be here, Carey. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you. I've said this to many people. Jeremy is a very special friend to me because he was friends with my son, Cole. As most of you all know, if you're listeners, lost Cole when he was 25 years old to suicide. So this is why this is such a huge, huge subject for me and where my passion is. So Jeremy and I have become great friends. He's actually, I tell people he's the wisest young man I think I know. One of the wisest. And because of that, he's become not only a friend, but a mentor to me. So I appreciate you, Jeremy. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate you.
JC Dornick, Dr. JC, thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And if I'm introducing myself right at this time, I would just say that I'm just a very, very passionate and dedicated fan of Carey Conley.
Don't make me emotional, guys.
And in my part-time, so my name's Dr. JC Dornick, otherwise known as the Dragon, host of the Rise Up with Dragon podcast, which has been going on for a long, long time. I've done a lot of things in my life that have turned me into what I would consider an observer. And I've made some very, very fascinating observations that have provided me with breakthroughs that have taken me to a place where I probably have the haves that a lot of people are seeking out there. So I've just dedicated my life in various ways via being an author. Got a new book coming out in January called Makes Sense. And the catchphrase is help solving the mysteries of why shit happens. I don't know if we could swear on this. But also I was a practicing chiropractor and got into neurology for about 18 years. I've hit many, many walls in my life, and own a health transformation coaching company, and which is worldwide. And we probably care for a couple million people, thousands of coaches. So I'm just honored to be here. You know, when we get into these conversations, what I'm thinking right now, and I invite people watching, is why are we here? Why are these people here? So I'm excited to figure that out.
Yeah. I appreciate you being here because you've been so transparent on my podcast, JC, about the struggles that you had early on in your life with mental health. And I would love to get your insights on all of that today, and especially what helped you when you were going through that. So appreciate you. Dr. Rob, thanks for coming on again.
Awesome. It seems like yesterday I saw you. I don't know why that's
I don't know. Maybe it was.
Right. Hey guys, my name is Dr. Rob Carey. I'm a PhD behavioral scientist and a PhD psychologist. We're also a neuroscience expert. We basically work in the music, film, and TV industry with A-listers, very concierge doctor. And we change brains, man, and we recirculate the brains and stuff like that. So we believe that every brain is changeable. Every neural pathway to success is available, because 300 neural pathways, which for those guys that don't know are thought patterns, 300 neural pathways die every day, usually bad while you're doing the right thing and following the routine. So we teach people how to create 300 new neural pathways, redirect, get rid of the subconscious brain crap that's all in there, start coming from the conscious brain, and just be the best person, successful person that you can be today. So that's what we do.
On a big scale. He's known as the addiction.
Huge scale. I've got 5 offices around the world, $100 million company. Yeah, we just love 25%, as you know, is pro bono, though. We got to remember I was homeless for over a year with alcoholism. So yeah, we like to give back. Yeah.
It's known as the addiction doctor, and I've learned so much from meeting Dr. Rob already about how we can change not just behaviors and thoughts, but literally can change habits. So big. So thank you again, guys, for being here. And I wish I'd gotten the memo on the hat. So I did some snooping around on statistics, and I wanted to share some of those with you guys and get your opinions to start with. It's interesting to me to see why there is such a focus on mental health around men and not so much on women. And statistically, we all know this. I think men are more susceptible to depression, anxiety. I also lost my husband, who was 52 when he passed to suicide. And so I would love to know your input. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Rob, because I know you have a large clientele. Why you think there is such a difference between men and mental health and women in mental health?
Well, first of all, men don't want to talk about mental health. That's the problem we find, because it's not manly, you know. You can't turn around to your friend at work, especially with a manual job, and go, hey, you know something? I cried this morning. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's some childhood trauma, because you probably get punched in the face by the coworker and told to get your shit together. So that we struggle with that for a long time. And one of the ideas why I got involved in the industry that I'm involved with, let's get that shit out the closet. Enough of it, you know, and that's why, I mean, people are still embarrassed. Most of my patients today, as we stand today, would never go in the spotlight and go, hey guys, you know, because it would probably ruin their career. So we're fighting against this. It's still a stigma. It's where I don't know, it's where vegans were 5 years ago or something like that. It's like they're hid in the closet. Nobody wants to know. There's no money in recovery or getting somebody well. So if less than give you a pill or anything like that, they're not interested. So the pharmaceutical companies got you, or the treatment centers have got you. No, but it's like when you got depression. When a guy gets depression, he doesn't like to say to everyone, I got depression. He keeps that and he keeps that in. So what happens eventually, he said to his wife or his friends, I'm depressed. What should I do? And he's got to go to the doctor. So off he pops to the doctor, and the doctor says, hey, your depression, here's some pill. It's like an SSRI, go away, you'll feel good, produces. Why isn't anybody asking in the first place why my serotonin is low? Why is nobody asking that? You know, so we're not getting the information we need as men. We're not getting the information we need as teenagers, where mental health needs to be highlighted more than it is. There's no doubt about that. And I know, Carey, you're doing the best you can do, and you guys as well on here, including myself, are doing the best we can. But I think we need to shout louder. And I think we need to prove, like, you can online me, you can search me. I'm an alcoholic, an addict. I had depression. I had suicidal tendencies. I've been through everything, which I think qualifies me to turn around to other men and go, hey, you know something, buddy? I've been there, and it's okay. It really is okay. And I think as long as we can bring that out and convince men that we're in a safe place. Yeah. That's when you go, you know something? Well, I know exactly. Yeah, but Dr. Rob, you don't know because you've never. Yeah, I've done that. Come on, sit down. Let me talk to you about that. And I think once we start doing that with experienced people in the industry, then men are going to come forward and go, hey, listen, I need to sit down with you.
Yeah. And I can see by all the other men here that shaking their heads that they totally agree this stigma thing is a really big deal. And I can tell you from experience with both my husband and my son that they hid so much from everybody, including me. And I think it was a lot having to do with pride and shame, because so much of their identity was attached to what they did for a living and not so much as to who they are and how they were really struggling. In hindsight, because I'd known my husband since high school, after his passing, I could start seeing behind the scenes of what I didn't see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. You know, it's learned behavior from childhood. It's the measurement from childhood. Now, depression and suicide and, you know, addiction cannot be passed down. Like mom had heart problems, I've got heart problems. It doesn't work like that. That's humanly impossible. But what happens is that a deficiency where we can't methylate a certain kind of protein or food, we can't methylate around. So therefore, depression comes from that. And once we realize that this is fixable, 100% fixable, then you can change lifestyles. You can change learned behavior. The reason why everybody wants to fit in with each other is the mirroring part of the brain. We want to replicate, like go and study chimpanzees, guys, at the zoo, like I did for a year. Everybody wants to be like her. Everybody mimics each other. Everybody wants to be strong. Men are strong, and you know we don't cry. We don't. Enough already. There's too many people died because of that shit. There's too many, the graveyards are full of people that didn't think it was a good place for him to talk, and didn't think it was manly for him to talk, and that they were letting people down. That's bullshit. That's wrong, guys.
Thank you for being so passionate about this as I am. So JC, I know that you've been through a period of your life you shared on the podcast where you were in this place. Did you feel this way?
Just trying to process what he just said. Yeah, anybody that talks about rewiring brains, I want to party with him. Different kind of party these days, though. Yeah, you know, if you listen to my episode with Carey, you know, it wasn't until I was 37 years old, you know, and I flipped a switch from going from the most cocky, confident person in the world, you know, the person that everybody thought, whether they thought I was an asshole or not, I was going to succeed in their eyes. And then, thank God, I hit a wall that took me to the darkest place in my life, which forced me to take a look at things, take a
Mm.
look under the hood. It was either die or take a look under the hood. And I made a distinction of an event that happened to me when I was 11, thanks to being guided through some questions and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I understand it's what's interesting, Dr. Rob, about this whole conversation is, we're in the jacuzzi experience right now, and maybe some of the listeners are as well, where they're going to say, this is why you guys keep saying the name of my book, and it just gets me aroused. You keep saying, makes sense, makes sense. You know, things can make sense and then not make sense pretty soon after. So what's fascinating to me is the whole sleepwalking through life concept. And, my message to people, which I learned, which most people would say the hard way, but thank God, I like to just look at a man and say, did you know that it's not your fault? I mean, everybody knows the concept of we forgive you for you know not what you do. And it's just such a wonderful feeling when I meet somebody like Rob that was just as fucked up as me once, makes me feel good, but it doesn't move me into a forward structure. So what I like to let people know is in that concept of it's not your fault is I educate people into something called brain awareness perception. And that's a lot of fun where you just recognize, your brain has 40 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and you've somehow grabbed onto 4 of them and become indoctrinated into that being your reality. So, I teach people, I break that down and I say, you've been programmed by your programmers, your mother, your father, your teacher, your preacher, but now society. Educate people to acknowledge the fact that whatever we consume with reality ends up being what we assume with reality. And reality is pretty fucked up if you're consuming it right now. So from that space, that's where somebody maybe gets a glimmer of hope. And I just like guiding people to what I call the eye of the storm. If you can just recognize that there's a program, a knee-jerk reaction, that is preloaded and ready to go, and you can validate saying, hey, hold on a second. And I teach them to say, like when Rob just talked, I loved what he said, but I still said, and I allowed myself to actually process it with logic and rationale. And in that, what I call the eye of the storm, you access a different part of your brain where you can do the work,
Yeah.
Frankel talks about that and stuff. So the whole concept of what I have found and I like to help people with is teaching them how to make sense of things, make sense of what matters, what doesn't, what we control, what we don't, what supports our future desire and what doesn't. And that's when you go from jacuzzi to pivotal.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about here is, this is it's kind of like a science project. I'm kind of working through some of my own trauma still right now. And the woman that I'm working with has me take capture a thought that has become a part of my reality that I didn't really know was there, and then start picking apart. Like you're saying, JC, I wonder where that came from and why I have that thought instead of going down a rabbit hole.
It's spelled HMMM, 3 M's, in case anyone wanted to know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it's the good news, and it's also for me, it's forefront for me because I now have 2 grandsons. And so now I am so like on top of my daughter, unfortunately. She keep reminding me I'm not the mom. I'm not the mom. But I am just very aware of at the age of 3, and you said this, Dr. Rob, is when they start taking on those personality identities and how powerful every situation that they are in right now needs to be a positive one. So I know that you're going a lot into the schools, Marcus, and you have 2 little young men yourself that you're raising. So I'd love to have your insights in how you are seeing this play out with the kids right now.
Yeah, it's been a blessing over the last 5 years. I've been running a mentorship program directly in a school, and now with Generation Y, we literally this past Sunday were in front of 1,500 plus kids at once, and so really having access to them at a different capacity. And with the girls, it's exactly what you're saying. They are much more likely to come up after and say, I'm struggling. But the thing is, this is probably the most traumatized generation in the history of the world because this is the first generation where you're really getting into, they have the access of the world's traumas at their fingertips. Even me, at my young age, when I was in high school, we didn't have internet. My senior year, we got dial-up, and it took 30 minutes, and it took the house phone, so my mom wasn't having it. Yet these kids wake up, and they know what's happening in Israel. They know what's happening in Australia. They know what's happening in Lebanon. I mean, by the time they open their eyes, they're being flooded with it. They're being flooded with it. So their brains are overstimulated with trauma, and they personalize that. Then, not to mention their own trauma and their parents fighting and their homelessness and the addiction and the abuse. And so the girls, like, I brought in some volunteers to the school with me, and there was a young lady who came right up to us and said, "Thank you so much for that message." I was feeling like giving up. I mean, the first time I got raped, I just was so, and then the second time I got raped, and then, I mean, just the third time I got raped, I just decided, what's the point of living? And it just said it like we talking about the third time I went to the grocery store and got some carrots, you know, it's like, this is the conversation. But the boys, they have to, their friends are like, you're weak. They don't want to be weak. They don't want to be perceived as less than. They don't want to be perceived as soft, because then they become a target of even more bullies. And the bullies feel just as insecure, just as inferior. They got just as much pain and trauma, but they're trying to feel better and more masculine and manly. So now I just witnessed this in the school yesterday, and a group of boys were just riling up another boy so that he could bully another boy. It's all because I want to be seen as I'm strong and I'm tough. But when I get them one-on-one, I don't care about none of that. I don't care about your ego. We're going to pierce right through that, because at the end of the day, every single one, pain is universal. I don't care who you are. And you can't fool me. You can come in here and act all tough if you want, but when you cry yourself to sleep at night, I know what's happening. When you out here stealing from the dollar store to feed your siblings because you don't have a parent in the home, and you trying to figure out how to just survive, and that's taxing on the brain, that's taxing on your mental health, that's taxing on how you perceive life itself and hope. So then when we're able, so what I'm saying is, the boys aren't going to volunteer any information, but we have to get louder, per what Dr. Rob said, and we have to be more vocal and not be afraid to challenge them and call out. Because when I do, I have some crazy one-on-one conversations of a lot of boys saying, I don't think I can be a man. I don't even know what that looks like. I don't know a man. My dad's in prison, or my dad's not here, or my dad's always at work, or whatever. There's no man in my house. I don't even know what that means. So I just got to go off what I see other 15, 16, 17-year-olds doing. And they just run around yelling and bravado and, you know, using and abusing women and drugs and at early ages. So I just repeat that, because that's what it means to be a man. And I'm like, no, that's not what it means to be a man. That's what it means to lead yourself to an early grave. Unless you're lucky and you find some hope and somebody come help you heal and point you on the right path. But it is the same in this age group as well, where the young men are feeling like, I can't share. I can't, because it makes me weak. And we challenge that every day.
It gives me so much hope to know that you are doing this with Gen Y, Marcus. And I know that right now, for the most part, they've been in Oklahoma, but I know that's changing with your help. So yeah, there's always obviously a lot of culture shifts and family dynamics that are playing into this for sure. And yeah, we need to, it takes a village. We need to go back to it takes a village, right? Thank you for what you're doing. Jeremy, I am really wanting to get your perspective on what you are seeing in your generation. As I said earlier, I think that age gap, early 20s, when young men are coming out and starting their lives and trying to figure it out, I feel like most of them, because, I talk to a lot of them, they're very willing to share with me that they feel like they're kind of drifting. They maybe not necessarily are happy with their jobs, but don't feel like they can make a change. So I would love your insights on that.
Yeah, to Dr. Rob's point, we are mirroring monkeys, and what we see, we do. My mom raised me with the phrase, monkey see, monkey do. To Dr. JC's point, the scripts that we are around, that we see, what we consume, we assume, and what we follow, who influences us, has a big impact on who we become. So while that can be seen as a good or a bad thing, if we look at it from a neutral standpoint, it is what it is, but it has the opportunity to be taken advantage of. And whether this is people conspiring to take advantage of it, or it just happened over decades or even hundreds of years. The fact of the matter is that it's happening. To Marcus's point, it's never been harder to be a man. And that's why we have to come together as men. When you disrupt what goes on in the household, Carey, on our episode, we got to heavily talking about following the cultural narratives. They can be helpful, or they can also, to the opposite side of the pendulum, totally not be helpful. When you disrupt what goes on in the family, and no family is perfect, whether you're being raised by a single mother, whether you're being raised by a single father, whether you're being raised by a mom and a dad, or two moms and two dads, or whatever that, or your grandparents, or you're a foster child, whatever the case is, just know that no family is perfect. However, when you disrupt what goes on in the household, you have the opportunity to disrupt an entire generation. So we still have leaders, but they're not the leaders that our fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers had. That was their dads. That was leaders in the community. Our role models are the Kim K's of the world on social media. They're the whoever politician you're going to subscribe to. And none of those people will ever have your best interest in mind as much as they would lead you to believe and make you feel to believe as you should have your own best interest in mind. And so we have to, from the moment we wake up these days, which is not being taught, we have to be defensive about where our eyes and our ears are tuned into, because it is so easy with a bombardment of advertising and marketing and of other people's belief systems and showing us the traumas in the world, which we've all kind of alluded to in one way or another. It is so easy to be taken down this rabbit hole that the world is doomed and that there is no point. And there's this constant nagging whispering from advertising of not to buy this or buy that, or not buy this and feel complete, and not do this and you'll be a better person. But there's an underlying tone. And now it's from the moment you're born into the moment you exit that you're not good enough. So buy this. You're not good enough, so spend your time watching this. You're not good enough, so take this pill. You're not good enough, so eat these things. And I know I'm talking in a general kind of brush stroke right now, but when you disrupt what goes on in the household by making parents needing both to work 40 hours a week, by creating narratives and scripts for what the roles should be, or disrupting those roles, you now can influence the future generation. And so I think it's so important, whether you have kids or you don't. I'm not blessed with the opportunity. In fact, I bought into the narrative at a younger age that I didn't want to bring kids into this world because of how doomy and gloomy it felt. Now I see it as my highest and best purpose, is to influence the next generation. I don't think I hope I'll be blessed with it one day, but that now is what I see as my sole mission and purpose at this point in time, is to be able to have kids and to influence them and to share with them a different way of thinking, a more maybe ancestral and holistic way of living and existing and of impacting. Because for every kid that has their head on right, there are 10 more that don't know up from down. And how hard it is these days to come across children who are humble, who are vulnerable, who have a safe space to let out anything, let alone understand who they are. And so we have everything telling us who we should be, who we shouldn't be, what to think, what not to think, that it's really easy to buy into any one of these scenarios and then not realize it until you're an adult, or unfortunately not realize it until you're too late. And so it's absolutely never been harder to be a man, because the lines have been skewed, right? With whether not a good thing or a bad thing, or I agree with it or I don't agree with it, but we had an empowerment movement for women over the last 50, 60, 70 years. The pendulum has to swing the equal and opposite direction. And unfortunately, in the pendulum swinging one way, you also have every man waking up not knowing what their role is. Things are no longer the same. And there's a reason why things have been the same in the 10,000 years plus, or the 5,000 or 3,000, whatever you believe. There's a reason why things were the way they were. There's a reason why household roles were the household roles. And when you start to inject other people's belief systems and narratives and scripts, whether they're good or they're bad, they will never have their best interest for you and your family the way you should have your best interest for you and your family. And so instead of having parents raising kids, we have the TV and social media and advertising and marketing. And so it's never been a harder time to be a man. It's never been a harder time to be a human, which is why we have to now come together and talk about these things, create these open spaces, and find a way to humble ourselves and to be vulnerable around those who love us most, around other men and brothers, and along with other women as well, so that we can have a bigger view of this, a more holistic view of this conversation, so that we maybe put ourselves potentially in a situation where we can do something about it.
I couldn't agree with you more with the blurred lines, Jeremy. I think that has become very generational. And I do believe that there are a lot of young men right now around your age, Jeremy, that are really confused by that, right? So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about, we've talked a little bit about the different roles, the differences between men and women. And what was also interesting for me is seeing, when I was looking at statistics, you guys, the difference in cultures. So, and I didn't realize when I put this panel together, that I was going to be talking on this, but I found a report. It was from the CDC in February of 2022, from year 2000 to 2022. There was a bar chart, you guys, that showed, lines of white, non-Hispanic men, Hispanic men, Black men, and then they went into females. But the highest percentage of increase in suicide was in white, non-Hispanic men. I mean, there was a huge gap. And I'm interested to know why you all think maybe culturally that is. And Marcus, I'm going to ask you to start with that, if you would.
Absolutely. I actually have spoken to some panels on this before, and I've actually had some gentlemen ask me that question as well. Some wealthy gentlemen who wanted to come in and visit my school in the inner city, and they saw it and they got to witness a brawl the first day. 5 minutes in, they got to witness, and they're like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" I'm in there wrestling with kids, and they got to see that, and they're like, "Man, these kids face so much. They don't have money, they don't have parents." People like, "Well, where are the parents?" They don't have parents. Like, no, like their parents are dead or in jail, or so grandma is old and tired. Anyway, all of that to say, when they ask, well, why is it that we don't see the increased rate of suicide within this demographic? And it's because there was never a decline in quality of life. They were born into a deteriorating, horrible quality of life. So all they know is struggle. All they know is, I'm 3 years old and we don't have any food. I'm 5 years old and we don't have any electricity. We live like we're in a third world country and I'm in the United States. All they know is, I'm 11 years old and daddy died, mama died, grandma died, living in the system. That's all they know. So when they get into earlier, like young adulthood and early adulthood, there is no like, well, let me just take my life because life is suddenly so bad. It's always been bad. And so speaking specifically within my culture, that's why you haven't seen a stark incline, because struggle is all the majority knows. Wow.
I was not expecting that answer. And that makes so much sense. Because they don't have a higher expectation or a higher identity pushed on them at a young age, which I think was a big problem with my husband, especially.
And honestly, these guys would know, because within psychology, there's a term called learned helplessness. And that is where generationally things have continued to be so bad that we just learned to not even have hope. This is what it is. There'll never be anything better. And so if I've just accepted that that's what my whole life is going to be, it's like, well, this is just what it is. And you've adopted that. That's not good, because then it's like, well, then there's no hope and there's no aspiring for more. And that's part of what my role is to help broaden their horizons and encourage them to look bigger. I'm a living proof of what can happen. And I come from what you come from. So you can't tell me that what's not possible. And I represent the impossible dream to so many that look like me. But yeah, that would be the insight I have within that demographic.
Wow. Interesting. Jeremy, do you feel the same?
I would say I share a lot of those sentiments, and I can't speak to Marcus's background and upbringing because I come from a totally different one. If you're listening to this right now, the feedback I've gotten my whole life is you probably think I'm Caucasian. If you're looking at this right now, the feedback I've gotten my whole life is you probably think I'm Mexican. And the truth is I'm kind of in between. I'm indigenous. And so the land changed, and Carey and I had this conversation with one of her mentors this last weekend over some dinner over a great golf course. It was a great time. And, I come from this weird in-between of I only speak English. My parents knew Spanish. And so I have this interesting experience of kind of having a more Hispanic Mexican upbringing here in America, but also being immersed in this and like truly feeling American more than anything else. I say all of that to say this, and this is coming for every race, no matter what. But when you look at what the media has done is they have started with, and this is happening in different ways, But now we're at the end of it where the white man is demonized. In every corner, the most dangerous thing that you can be is the white man. The whisperings of that in the media, in TV, in Hollywood, and all of these productions. And that's going to start there. And once that's accepted, which it kind of has been, is will go on to every race as well, till men are just demonized. And so I don't care how I talked about a second ago, how the pendulum swung towards women empowerment. As it swings back towards male empowerment, it leaves the chance that just gets suffocated completely out. And it becomes more of what Marcus said, which is just accept it. Just accept you don't have a role. Just accept the roles that we're going to give you. Accept these things. And if we as men, regardless of our color, allow for us to be demonized because of a choice we didn't have at birth, and because they've allowed for society to become so confused in every way, we don't have to get into the details. We all know.
Yeah.
This only creates an environment where, should there be a male empowerment movement, it will look like the most radical thing that you could ever dream up, when in just reality, it's men like those that you're watching and hearing on this video, and the other men in your life that you know, which mean no harm, which only want what's best for themselves and best for their families and their communities. When you get down to the bottom of it, how is that so radical? And should we get to a point where it swings that direction, it will be seen that radical if we allow for men to continue to be demonized. This is not a game of men are better than women. This is not a game of women are better than men. This is a game of what is our role to allow for this thing to function so well, to allow for, when you look at this, if you want to pull up the stats, there's never been a safer time to be alive, regardless of pandemic, regardless of war, regardless of the weapons and all of these things. There's never more automobiles on the road. There's never been a safer time to be alive. But if you follow the news and you're scrolling all day, you don't even want to go out to the sidewalk because of how scary it feels. And when they create an environment where everything feels unsafe, we will want to just stay in our homes. And then our only choice at that point will be to watch what's on the screens and to watch what's on our TV and to become addicts of the dopamine drip of social media and the constant scroll, and become even more overstimulated and become even more overly informed than we need to be or than what's healthy. And so this is such a multi-dimensional war that's going on, in my perspective, on the family and on not allowing the family to even be a thing. And I, like I said, I don't know if it's conspiracy or not, or what you believe or what you look into or whatnot. At the end of the day, it's happening.
Yeah.
And there has to be conversation around it before it becomes the most radical concept ever, if we want for something to be done about it.
I'm so glad that you are so passionate about what we are seeing and being fed, Jeremy, because that is, I think, a big part of it. And I think we've become very numb to it. I'm very aware of what my grandsons are watching and what they're hearing. And just, again, I'm just so aware of what they're getting fed right now, that I'm happy that there are people like you that are really talking, especially the men in your generation, to be aware of that and to be, fighting that as much as we need to. So Dr. Rob, do you have any input on this topic?
Don't be silly. Of course I do. Marcus, I love it. Jeremy, I love both your points, man. It's so true. Look, babies are born with two fears. Fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. The rest are man-made. Wait till your father gets home. Oh my God. We did a white paper for McLean Hospital, which is Harvard University's hospital. And we found that the enmeshment and the learned behavior, if you don't grow up, the social skills are not being met. There's a 77, I think, percentage chance of you going to go in, try and have a child, then leave that child. Because it's generational. The learned behavior is generational. So what do we have to look at? Well, today, I've worked with so many families that they bring the kids in and shove in front of the TV. Or they bring the kids in, they go to the bedroom and they're there on the games and Facebook and everything all night long, and nobody cares. As parents, you drop the ball. My parents dropped the ball. My generation dropped the ball on bringing children up. So, I was speaking to a young lad of 13, 14 the other day, and he was telling me, I said, you've lost your social skills. Oh, no. I've got 6,000 friends on Facebook. I said, you're actually plugged into a wall. The interaction with another human being, it's like chimpanzees, which I studied immensely. The nurturing needs to happen. So we came up with this that kind of shocked the world and pissed everybody off. But me, Carey, I don't give a shit. That anything less than nurturing is child abuse. And if you look at that critically and see And you look at chimpanzees, they're bringing them in, they're holding them, they're playing with them. Now, I know we can't do that as a society today, but look, there's no nurture anymore. There's no validation. And this is with 8,000 patients and 30 years in the industry. I'm not making this up, guys. We don't get approved by our parents as much as we used to, because everyone's too busy. We're tied to our phone. We're tied to our screen. We're tied. And kids are let to run amok. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Always hanging around with the bad kids at school. Parents, you can stop that. Because guess what? He will become a bad kid. If I hang around 9 depressed people, I'm going to become the 10th. If I hang around 9 intelligent people, I'm going to be intelligent because I want what they have. But we're not being allowed to do that. Plugged into walls doesn't do it anymore. Guys, you want to lose 95% of your problems right now of worrying, turn the TV off. Yeah. 95% of your problems will disappear overnight. We're absent. We're abandoned. I was abandoned as a child. What does that mean to me? I will never, unless the work's done, be available emotionally to anybody else in my life. So then we studied abandonment like I was on the streets. Abandonment brings isolation, which brings depression, which brings suicide. It's as simple as that. Work and work and work on this. And what we do is we're all new science. What's happening now with the brain? Let's study the brain and central nervous system and the mind. Brain, mind over matter. Let's see what's going on. And the world and the parenting right now, and God bless you, parents. We don't come with a manual, we know that, but God bless you. But somewhere we've been taught to abandon our kids a little bit and they'll be okay. Do you know something, guys? 90% of people out there are not okay. And I think that's where a lot of it's come from. But how are you going to sit down with somebody and explain to somebody about another man anything when there's not been a father there to explain to you how to, you know, and it's that male to male that we've lost. I'll tell my girlfriend anything. I'm not going to tell my best friend, or I'm not going to tell, we just don't do it. So look at the generational thing. We look at how people have changed from now till only 10 years ago. 20 years ago, it's crazy how much we've changed. But we're animals that like to repeat behavior. You know, so if I go somewhere with a bunch of guys and girls to the seaside, you know, the day out, and we drive there in a bus, we go out, we have a day out, I get back on the bus. Which seat do I sit in? The one I travel there. We like that comfort zone. We like that protective comfort zone of doing the same things over again. In my industry, doing the same thing over and over again is me not being able to see my own truth.
Yeah.
I can't see what I'm doing wrong. I can't see why I'm doing it. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I will do it because it's repetitive behavior from caregivers.
Yeah. This is so important. And, you know, every panel that I've had on different topics has always come down to one common denominator, several, but the biggest one being community. We've lost it. We need it. We need to stop isolating. Isolation is big. It's the biggest generation that's struggling with it the most are young adults right now, which shocked me when I learned that statistic. I thought it was going to be people my age. Because, you know, most of us are divorced or widowed or whatever, kids out of the house, the whole thing. But they are the loneliest, right? And I do believe in everything you all are saying. I think it's too much screen time. I think it's not enough interaction with the kids. It's not having conversations with them. I know that you work really hard on this, Marcus, with your boys, of conversing with them. And, you know, it encourages me to see that parents are really trying to make the effort and become aware of this. So JC, any final thoughts on this topic before I ask you guys my final question?
Final thoughts. You're asking me to speak after these three guys just said all that. That's funny. So first of all, you know, just to be present and just separate ourselves from the audience, you know, I just love conversations like this. And the reason why I respect the three of you without even knowing you is because you're passionate about what you're talking about. But can you enter another chat, another panel, where you're observing people talking about nonsense and bullshit, counteractively talking about things on the other side, or probably the side of problem, and still honor and respect them for their passion?
Sure.
So the question I like to ask people is it okay to not be okay? You know, I was thinking, hearing Marcus, you know, I was right there watching that fight when you were talking about it, you know, because, you know, I think that this all falls into perception. You know, you were talking about those statistics, you know, why, even in this conversation, you can get a sense, go watch it after and feel the energy of it. We're even putting a little bit of a negative look on parents that don't nurture well. All these things that we're saying, this is the problem. That's a lot of pressure to put on a guy, right? So the concept of perception, I always go back to our programming and everything like that, and forgiveness and everything like that. I get it. You know, when the other day I was sitting at a bar in a airport, and this strange woman had a couple cocktails. I don't drink. I was just eating, and there was a newscast about the president that wears a red hat, and she just proceeded to talk about him for 15 minutes, and she hated him. She's going, and then at the end of that conversation, she said to me, she goes, right? And I go, right what? And she says, that guy. And I said, what about him? And she says, beep, 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 beep. And I go, I've never met him. So what I want to say is that I just think it's fascinating how even in this highly conscious conversation, we're still putting pressure on people by identifying the problem.
Yeah.
Right. And what I love to do, like, you know, Rob, something that stuck into my head is I love what you said. You said anything less than nurturing is child abuse. Well, that freaks me out when I don't think I'm doing a good job nurturing my child, you know? So I think that the big problem here in that category, you know, like Marcus, when you said these guys don't commit suicide because they've always had learned helplessness, one of my favorite Stoic principles, right? What's worse, to not be able to want to kill yourself because of that, or to be so freaked out by life that you want to kill yourself? Because I can sit here and tell you right now, me included, some of the greatest minds in the world that are changing the world have almost killed themselves, right? So what I would like to just insert in as a closing thought is it okay to not be okay, right? And, you know, God only prunes the branches he wants to see grow and all that stuff. So what I love to do is just stop trying to get people to do things and just try to get people. And if we can just guide people into a space, I call it the eye of the storm. That's what I have, an interface response system. Marcus is getting excited. We're going to talk more. But you get people into this space where they can just go, and recognize that it's okay. It's okay to fuck up. It's okay to want to kill yourself. It's okay to not parent your children. I would not be here right now. I never would have met Carey, Conley, and Sharon Lecter at that table if my mom and dad didn't fuck me up. So there's that side of this too. I'm not one-sided, but my concept is when people say, JC, how you doing? I say, it's all good. It's all good. And you get to decide, once you start thinking and being conscious, you get to decide where you want to go and how much effort you want to put in and how much fierce urgency you have for it. It's all good, you know. Yeah. But, you know, Jeremy, I don't know how old you are, but, you know, you project a bright future for the country. You know, yeah, turn the freaking TV off if you want to move forward. But if you're looking to dissociate and go offline with your mainframe, turn the TV on, because it's a great way to not take responsibility if that's your goal, right? So for me, it's a tennis match, and I enjoy watching that.
Well, these are really good points you're making, and I can, from a personal standpoint, say in my own trauma healing, you guys, the first thing that I had to come to was realizing that I needed to have a whole lot of compassion on myself. Right. Because for a long time, you know, we all go through identifying at some point. We have trauma, something happened in our life. Our parents this, our parents didn't do that, whatever. And it's coming to a reality, like you're saying, that it's just an equalizer for us. Right. And we have to be not only compassionate for ourselves, but for each other and for those people. I know how my parents were raising me. And I can either blame them or look at them and say, you know what, they did the best they could with knowing what they know, or what they knew. So thank you for that, because I think compassion on ourselves and on each other is a place that we need to be in the community. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Most of
Dr.
us
Rob.
would have no careers if people weren't so fucked up.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. That's why I do what I do. I had no idea 10 years ago this is where I was going to be sitting, you guys. I was in a whole different place in life when I had my son and my husband and all the things, whole different career path. But this was God's purpose for me. And I've come to accept that, which I know you all have as well. So thank you for that perspective. I'm interested to know from the rest of you how you would start that dialogue with the people that you are impacting right now. Because we do need to start the dialogue. I wish I would have known to have some questions with my husband that I didn't know then. So if we are in this world of having to open up this dialogue, how would you start that with the young men that you are impacting? And so, Dr. Rob, I'm going to start with you.
Like you said, it's very important with the dialogue. It's very important that we talk to people. A lot of people don't do it anymore. You know, it's like what I should do was to sit down and start dialogue with anybody. It doesn't make any difference. The thing we do as a society is we forget the quiet people. We forget the guys at the back of the class. The studies we've done at people at the back of the class who are really intelligent, but they get bored at the front of the class, so they start messing around because they're far more advanced. They get left to the back, you know. So I like to sit down with them guys and start a brand new conversation around. And every family is different, but what I can tell you is every family is dysfunctional and everybody has trauma. I know that much from our studying. So yeah, I mean, I could stay in there for 5 hours explaining what I would do, but the thing is, it comes down to just that. It comes down to let's sit down and talk. Let's sit down and talk, because you know what I'm going to do? Probably for the first time in your life, I'm going to listen. And we don't do that. Listening is an art, is what I found with people, because we've all been in that conversation. We're all intelligent guys. We all make an impression on the world, but you've been in that conversation, guys, where, you know, you might be in a circle and you're telling a really heartfelt story, and that one guy can't wait for you to finish because he's got a better story to come. It's like, we stop listening. Sit down. Let me talk to you. You do most of the talking, and I'll listen.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I hope that men will be impacted by this to understand that it's okay to talk and to take the time to talk. I think my husband needed to hear that more, for sure. So, Marcus, how about?
We need to enforce it, you know?
Yes.
I talked to JC was saying before, you know, it's very hard to determine who's dysfunctional, who's not. It's very hard when parents, are they doing it right? Are they doing it wrong? Listen, even with our addictive patients, that parents took heroin, no one's to blame here. There's no blame. That's the really crazy thing about it. And the reason why we're not solved it yet is there's not really anybody to blame. If you think about the bigger picture, we've just got to start that.
Right. Just kind of what JC was saying, right? Stop the pressure. So, Marcus, how about you? I know that you've told me in the past that you have dialogue with your sons. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think with anybody, whether it's them or whether it's the kids I work with at schools or the Fortune 5 and 100 company leaders, CEOs I work with, either way, it starts with attacking belief, like the concept of belief in what you believe. And so with that, I talk to kids and I approach them and I tell them, like, man, you can be so special. You are special. There's so much you can do, leading with compassion. They don't believe it, though. Because there's all this other information telling me, to Jeremy's point earlier, that I'm nothing. I don't matter. And so they're fighting this. And so I'm telling my boys in their eyes, man, you're so special. And as well as grown men who are afraid to cry. And you can see they're fighting everything not to cry. And I know what that feels like, because there was a time in my life when I didn't believe that I was anything, because I was told that. I never used my voice. I never spoke up. I settled and lived as an inferior version of myself for a very long time, until I came across a quote that changed everything for me. And I lead with this quote. I talk to people about this quote. I live by this quote. And James Baldwin said it. He said, it took me many years of vomiting up all the filth that I had been taught about myself, and even half began to believe before I was able to move about this earth as though I had a right to be here. So my message to you as a man, If you hear the sound of my voice, is you belong here. You belong here. Where is here? Wherever you are. In your home, in your job, in your career, in wherever you are, there's not a place where you don't belong. And it is okay not to be okay. You start with compassion for yourself and belief in the good in yourself, even though you ain't there. Nobody's there, fam. Nobody is perfect. We're all on the journey towards who we hope to and aspire to be. So right now, grace for yourself and realize that you belong here. You matter. All right, I'm done. Stop for a start.
I love you so much. What's your tagline, Marcus, when you end speaking? What do you tell everybody?
Yo, go be great because you
can. Thank you. So, Jeremy, last comments, especially I want to know, because you do mentor a lot of young men. What do you say to them so that they will dialogue with you, so that you can have that conversation?
The first thing, this is one of the things I wanted to end on, so I'm glad you brought that up, is you have to be living that yourself in order for that to come through. Knowing that no one is perfect and all of us have our own traumas and our own things that we are always working through. And there is no finish line with inner work. It is it is a journey that you have to accept that you're going to be on forever. So I think that the first thing that has to happen is you have to start doing that inner work, becoming okay with yourself, accepting the world for as it is, for you to be able to even hear and to be able to, I think, to truly listen to others and create a space where not only others can share these things with you, but where you can process them and reflect back to them what they're trying to say, the clues that you are hearing, so that they can hear it back for themselves. We have all these thoughts all day long. It's really hard to make sense of them. But weird what happens when someone hears the things we say, listens, and just says back to us what we said. It's weird. And you can go and talk in a mirror all day long. It's not going to change how much more impactful it is with another human being reflecting those things back at you so that you can hear what you just said. So I think you have to be living it as much as you can, knowing that you're going to be on this endless journey, this beautiful journey for as long as you walk God's beautiful green earth. I would also say that depending what you consume and watch and put your attention to, the world seems like a super dark place. And your family, your community, where you exist, where you are, might look like a super dark place and there is no hope. And I say all that to say it's not your fault. However, it is as a man, as a human being, it is your responsibility to do something about it by starting with yourself, by trying to become the best version of yourself every day that you can, knowing that not every day is going to be great because that's this human experience. And accepting yourself and accepting those things and knowing it isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it and to be that agent of change, whether it's you having kids, whether it's you impacting other kids, or it's you doing that work and existing around others and creating that space, or just making it okay to not be okay.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. I love that ending of it's okay to be not okay, to know that you can talk, to know that I think this is a movement for men. I really do. I really, really do. So I can't thank you enough for this time together. And as I mentioned at the top of this broadcast, you guys, I have decided to open up a community for young adults. I've been talking about doing this for years. And I just think it took me getting to a place where I now can accept some things to be able to serve those young adults. So it started with me opening up a Facebook group that I opened on 11/11 last Saturday, my son's birthday. So I hope you guys will go find that. It's called Vision is Victory, and become a member. Even if you're not a young adult, if you just want to support the young adults, I would love for you to join that group. And then we're going to be talking about more of how we're going to add resources to that, do some skill building in there, and really help build a community, which is what we're talking about ultimately today. And the last thing I want to do is give you all a gift. I'm a big believer that you need to have a very clear, strong vision for your life. Without a vision, people lose hope. And so I wrote a book in 2015. It's a workbook actually called Vision is Victory. And if you've never written your vision on paper, I want you to write down this text. You can text the word victory all in caps to 26786 and get a free downloadable version of that workbook. Victory all in caps 26786. I love seeing people write their visions and would love for you to connect with me if you are working on that now. So gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you all for watching, sharing, being a part of this. Very honored.